Can we have everyone's attention? Thank you so much for being here. I know I love this turnout. I know everyone is very, very busy this time of year, but this tells me you are the people in Cincinnati who are here because you want to protect public schools in Ohio. Before we get started, I would just like to introduce some of the guests that we have with us. The first person I know most of you know, and that is our very own Katie Hoffman, who's elected to the state school board. Katie Hoffman. And the next person that I would like for you to all be introduced to is Samantha Jordan. Samantha, where is Samantha? Samantha is the AFT Regional Director. Many of you may have remembered Bob Morgenstern. Samantha is the new Bob, in case you're wondering. And sitting right in the front row, we have Liz Jones, a retired CPS teacher. Liz Jones is also the CFT retiree president elected. And she's also your representative on the STRS board, elected statewide to represent retirees. So Liz and I are partners in crime at the STRS board. And right next to Liz, we have Melissa Miser from OFT. She is here, your state. Okay. Brian Griffin, he is the elected executive director for the AFL-CIO, and he's been working nonstop for all of us since January. We have right here, and where is he sitting? Right over here next to Brad Smith, we have the new CPS treasurer, Mike Gustin. And Mike is here because he also knows we need money, and he wants all of us to help him so we get the money we need in Cincinnati. We have, right over here, we have Caitlin Jackson from Columbus, Ohio. And Caitlin Jackson is the director of the All In for Ohio Kids. And she's been working statewide to make sure that we get this fair school funding for our students. In the front row, we have none other. She's on the wrong side of the table tonight, but that's okay. Eve Bolton is here from the CPS school board. Eve is usually here on this side of the table. We have our president-elect for CFOP, and that is Carol Smith. Carol, are you here? And she may be still helping people sign in. And we have president, who is going to be outgoing, is Fanny Carradine. So I would just like to thank everyone again. I love you all for coming. This is great. But my name, in case you don't know, if you're not from Cincinnati Public, my name is Julie Sellers, and I am the president of Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. Thank you. And I am so proud to co-host this event with our superintendent, Superintendent Shauna Murphy. She will be coming in. She is coming from the Hawkins Award, and that just is ending. So she'll be here directly after the Hawkins Award. So we invited not only CPS district stakeholders, but districts from all over Southwest Ohio. I do think we do have some people here from some other districts. If you are from our district, can you please stand up? Get your blood going. Yay! If you are from another district but not CPS, could you stand up? How many other teachers do we have? Yeah. If you are a community member, please stand up. Thank you, everyone. We love our community members, and they are going to be the ones who are really going to help us push us through and over the finish line with our state senators. So why are we here tonight? We're here because public education is under attack, a serious attack. They are trying to kill us with 1,000 cuts. Back on March 4th, our union joined teachers and community members across the nation, and we had walk-ins at many of our schools throughout the district to stand up for public education, stop the cuts at the federal level, and thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, teachers, parents, students, protested and rallied for us. Soon after, the Ohio State budget was released, and it is just as bad. We knew that along all the protests happening here and across the nation, to stand up and save our basic services like Social Security, public education, in the face of the state budget, we needed more than just a street protest. I said to our office, like, I am not go to the streets for a protest. We are going to take some actions because it's the actions that are going to make the difference. But I said, we can't just go out to the community and to our members and say, stand up for us if we haven't educated them. So I said, we're going to have an educational summit. We have 3 state experts here this evening. One's still on his way. He's close by, though. And we are going to help our community to move into direct advocacy to the Ohio politicians here in Ohio. Many of the politicians who are here have said, I'm in Columbus tonight and I can't make it, but they're with us in spirit. So this town hall was planned, and here we are. I'm sorry it is on election day, but I think everybody had plenty of time to vote early, and there weren't really long lines, so you could have voted after school, you could have voted on the weekend, or in the last couple of weeks. So with our top experts in the state, they're going to inform all of us of what is happening, and then we are going to take actions for our public schools. Did everyone get this packet? There is a packet when you first came in. If you did not get the packet, raise your hand and we'll have someone bring you a packet, because this packet is going to be the action that you're going to take, and we hope you take it back to not just to your children and your spouse and your family, but take it back to your schools, because we need as much action from this part of the state as we can get. We are under attack, one, because we're standing up for the DEI to make sure all of our kids are protected. Our superintendent and board said, we are about DEI, and we are not going to eliminate any of the programs and services that we have. So make sure you get a packet. Michelle Dillingham will be going through the packet at the end, and we will need to make sure, just take the time to really follow through with this. You can see on your program with our expert panel that we have teacher and parent testimonies along with our experts. Then we are going to have a Q&A, and to get to everyone's question, We're going to collect the questions and at the end of the session. So if you have any questions for our experts, write them down, and then we will put them together and group them while we have our parent and teacher speakers. So the last thing we have is, I want to say thank you. Oh, here is our last speaker is here. This is our expert. This man, we all need to love him and give him a warm applause. Look. He has been helping CPS for almost as long as I've been in office. He actually came here when we used to have the charter money filtering through and the voucher money filtering through of how much we were losing in the backfill. He came and met with our treasurer and Superintendent Ronan when she was here. So he's a wealth of knowledge. And there was somebody else that came in that I wanted to, City Council Vice Mayor Jan Michelle Kearney, and her husband Eric is also here. And there was someone else who came in. Oh, Anna Albee. Where is Anna? Stand up. Here she is. Anna has been very instrumental with the West High pedestrian safety, and we really do appreciate that. So let me introduce our panelists, and I will be brief because they have so much expertise. But Scarlett Bowder, I've known for years and years through the Ohio 8. She is the co-founder and president of ACS, which is an advocacy group that works with the state. Scarlett directs the strategic communication planning, government relations, and advocacy efforts. She does policy analysis and also helps with strategy development. Scarlett has 25 years of experience in government relations and communications. And guess what? Her partner grew up across the street from me and went to Walnut Hills. Can you believe it? Lori. Go Eagles. Yeah, go Eagles. So after launching ACS in 2004, she left the company in 2007, and she joined the administration of Governor Ted Strickland, who loved public education, and we haven't been right since he's been out of office, where she was appointed Director of Communication and Marketing for the governor's office. She was later appointed Chief of Staff at the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services, and then the state's largest agency of $18 billion. She is one of only female and minority-owned consulting firms in Ohio, which is good. The woman-led and woman-driven firm has a national reputation for its communication and strategy development expertise and the deep understanding of policy and advocacy, especially for organizations in early childhood and K-12. So she is our go-to when we have questions about something in a bill like what is this and what's it going to do to us. The person sitting on your right is Stephen Dyer. He is the former chair and secondary education subcommittee of the Ohio House Finance Committee. And he really understands school funding. Steve Dyer is currently the founder and president of Education Policy Solutions, which is a consulting firm that helps schools and districts to better understand the public policy forces that can seem overwhelming. Among many roles, Steve was also the Education Policy Fellow at Innovation Ohio, which we can always go to for good data. He spent his career serving his community, first as an award-winning journalist with the Akron Beacon Journal, and they're still a great newspaper, Then, as an award-winning state rep representing Ohio's Summit and Portage counties. And our third speaker this evening is Dennis Willard. He is the director of Vouchers Heard Ohio. And we are hoping and praying that that all goes through. We've kind of had a couple delays with that lawsuit. But Dennis Willard is the communication director for Vouchers Heard Ohio. He was a State House reporter in Columbus for 23 years. He knows the ins and outs of the whole political process. The last 15, he was a bureau chief for the Akron Beacon Journal, where he wrote extensively about vouchers, charter schools, homeschooling, and public school funding, and he is the voucher expert in the state of Ohio. Was that Stephen Cross, or Jim Crossett that came in? We have another school board member here, James Crossett. He is our newest, and he really supports teachers and public education. So, after this expert panel, we're going to have you wave your index cards with questions, and we will collect those. And as we have, right up here in the front, we have Milbeth Allen, who is an intervention specialist in CPS. Clayton Adams, and she's at John P. Parker. And Clayton Adams, he is at Aiken High School as an AU specialist. And Angela Houston, and she's all the way up in the top as a parent. Her kids go to school here in CPS. So without further ado, I don't want to take any more of your time. They always tell me, Julie, you talk way too much, keep it short, but I cannot help myself. But make sure you have this packet because this is important. And I am going to allow, let's see, who's ready to go first? Scarlett, are you ready?
Yep.
Thank you.
Am I unmuted? Okay, great. Thanks, Julie. And thanks to the union and the CPS administration and the board for hosting this. I've done several of these around the state, and they're critical in moving the needle, and they have helped to indeed move the needle in the conversation at the State House. So as Julie said, my name is Scarlett Bowder. I'm president and co-founder at ACS. Our firm was born out of frustration, and I share this with you today for a very important reason. As Julie said, my business partner, Lori, is a CPS grad, and we started working together at Cleveland schools. We just came out of fiscal watch and rolled under mayoral control back in the late 90s. And we were the government relations team. And we ran into a lot of consultants who didn't know what they were talking about when they signed the contract with the local school district. And Lori and I said flippantly, wow, we can do this better. We actually care about the community. We actually go to schools. We actually talk to teachers and community members and administrators. And 5 years later, we launched our firm with a commitment to preserving and advancing the priorities of public education. So this is something that is not only professionally what I do every day, but it's a very personal part of my work. So thanks again, Julie and the team and everyone being here tonight. So big picture for the state budget, and I'll go real high level because I know the gentleman to my left will go into more detail on a couple of different topics. What we're working on are basically 4 issues. One, there's always others that pop up. For the most part, of course, school funding. What the legislature has done up to this point, along with other things like libraries, housing, lead abatement, they've shifted from systems and formulas that have been reliable, consistent, and predictable fairly to basically kneecapping formulas that have supported school funding and the other things that I mentioned for years. So now we're faced in the Senate with a school funding formula that is technically no longer. And what has been proposed is really just pushing dollars into school funding without a framework so that districts will have some level of reliability moving forward. In addition, the funding formula is split into a couple of different, it's split in a couple of different ways. They give you sort of basic funding for your kids, then they give you extras based on poverty level, special education, things like that. And then there typically is an adjustment for inflation. Some of you might have heard that as inputs. It's a really wonky word that basically says, when the state legislature looks at school funding, yeah, they're going to give you money for each kid that walks through your door, but you also have to have additional money for the world around you, like inflation. And I know everyone in this room knows there's been a little bit of rise in inflation over the past couple of years. The funding as it came out of the House did not consider inflation. So they just gave us sort of that baseline amount of funding for kids that walk through the door and really not much else. In addition to the fact that they ripped out the formula itself. So it really undermines the reliability and the predictability that school districts have to have as treasurers plan for 1 year, 3 year, 5 years out. The second piece is around school property. Existing law is that if a school building is empty for 1 year and is not used, that building has to be auctioned at market value to local charter school operators. The language that came out of the executive budget, unfortunately, undermined that and effectively said, not only is it school buildings, but school property, if they're under-enrolled at 60%. So it's no longer if they're not in use, which was a fairly sound argument, not that I agree with it, but it made sense on paper. But now there's this random under-enrollment of 60%. And then it would be auctioned off to not only the charters in your region, but outside of your footprint at use value, which is clearly under market value. So we've been pushing back on that to say, look, you know, these are properties and facilities that the community has invested in, that school boards have slated for use, whether it's now or in the future. That's overriding local control relative to what a school district wants to do with their own buildings and properties. So we're pushing back hard on that. I think we are moving the needle on that. It was modified coming out of the House, but we're still gonna have some work to do on the Senate side. Transportation, it was actually not something that was explicitly in the budget, but for the past decade, the Ohio 8 Coalition, which is all the city districts, their superintendents and union presidents, has been working to completely rework the way transportation operates, school district transportation operates in the state. The way yellow buses run routes, the policy that drives the way they run routes was built when yellow buses did not go on highways. So that system is completely broken. Most districts like CPS probably spend 50% more than what they get from the state for transportation reimbursement. So I'm getting really wonky, but at the end of the day, we're saying, look, we need a statewide work group of experts who actually know what they're talking about. So people from urban districts, suburban districts, rural districts. How about we bring a bus driver in and ask them? And parents to say, look, this is what we want from our transportation. If the law is we have to transport charter non-publics, it should be based on who is running the system, which is the local school district. Most local school districts, the larger ones, run more buses, more routes, more miles, and have more drivers than local transportation systems. So we need to make sure that policy at the state reflects that reality and the critical role that we play in getting kids to school, which, as you all know, is the key piece of starting the education for the day. The last piece is around educator placement. Last budget, there were concerns from certain superintendents, mostly smaller districts, that were having trouble recruiting educators. And they said, look, we have 3 licensure bands. So 2 between kindergarten and 8th grade, and then your high school. The state legislature compressed those to 2 licensure bands. They went from 3 to 2 licensure bands. So basically K-8 and then high school. There are some that came back this budget to say, we need more flexibility and we don't want to be required to place teachers in classrooms based on their seniority or collective bargaining agreements or their area of expertise. So what we've been saying is, yeah, my sister's a teacher, 28 years in. She's always taught kindergarten, first or second. She said, you would not want me in an 11th grade class. And I know the 11th grade history teacher, there's no way they'd want to be in a first grade class. So flexibility is important for all superintendents, and I don't know if that's going to be something that we're going to have to worry about from Ohio 8 districts, but we're pushing back hard on that to say, I don't think any parent would want. I have a 4th grader and a 9th grader. I want those teachers who are the experts, who are seasoned, to be in front of that classroom for my kids, and we know parents want that too. So those are the overall 4 pieces that we're working on. I know you're going to be talking about vouchers, and I just have to say, this guy, when I was a little grasshopper working with the media back in the day, this guy, when he worked for the Akron Beacon Journal, brought me along. So it warms my heart to be here with you, because this guy is one of my mentors in the media space, and it's just, you're lucky to have him as part of this advocacy effort on K-12.
Embarrassing me.
No, too bad.
It's on. I worked with him too, and he's not my, when I was with the Beacon, I worked with him a lot, and he is definitely not my mentor, so, no, I'm kidding. In order to understand what Ohio has done to school funding for the last 30 years, I think you just have to understand that Matt Huffman's an asshole. I've served with Matt Huffman in the legislature. We came into the legislature together, actually. We were in the same freshman class. And I had kind of an infamous, and even back then, of course, we were trying to fix school funding, right? And this was 2006. And I was in every freshman class, you go in and you meet all of the speaker, and they come in and talk and all that. And I raised my hand and asked the speaker, why haven't we fixed school funding? We've been told 3 times by the Supreme Court, 4 times by the Supreme Court to fix it. Why isn't it fixed? And I said, there are these states that do this and these states that do this. Why aren't we modeling those? And he told me, well, I guess that's why you're here. You're going to have to fix it. And I said, well, just don't table my motions, and I'll do it. And after that, Huffman actually came up to me and started asking me questions about school funding. Where'd you get this data? Where can we go talk? And while I was in there, we actually talked. He had ideas and those kinds of things. And now I don't know who this guy is that's currently the Speaker of the House, but he certainly is power hungry. And the one thing I will say that is pretty clear about his vision for public education, it's that simply there isn't one. What he wants to do is, frankly, something that when I was in the legislature would have been a political death knell, and that is essentially just give every kid a few $1,000 and then wash their hands of school funding. Whenever people always ask me, how much should we be paying per pupil for a student? And most people, when they think of school funding, they think, well, state has X amount of dollars, how many kids are there, let's divide that up, and that's how schools get funded. And that's the absolute worst way to fund schools. What you need to do is figure out how much kids need in each district, how much kids need in each building, how much kids need in each room, and then fund that. The Fair School Funding Plan, which was adopted a few years ago, had us on the path to doing that. This budget would represent the full funding of the Fair School Funding Plan. The Fair School Funding Plan, in fairness to the Fair School Funding Plan, is very similar to the evidence-based model that we passed when I was in the legislature and I was chair of the Primary and Secondary Education Subcommittee, and Ted Strickland was in office. In fact, if you change out the name, it's quite similar. But this budget was supposed to fully fund it. So it had been phased in. So we needed to fund the last 2 phases, which would have been, I think, the last 25% or something like that. What did the governor do? Governor said, okay, we'll fully fund you. We'll fully implement the Fair School Funding Plan, but we'll do it by cutting the cost. So, you know, it was kind of squishy, but he kind of got to it, and, you know, it was still a cut, but, you know, you could at least work with it because it's a formula. What Huffman did is just get rid of the formula. And just, so what's that mean? That means that you're going to have to go and beg for your bread every 2 years at the legislature, rather than having the determining factor about what your kids get in the classroom based on, you know, need, cost, you know, expertise, those kinds of things, you know, things like, I don't know, studies, you know, those kinds of things that actually help students succeed. So what they have done is get rid of the formula, go back to basically what we've had for the last 30 years, except for the time we had the evidence-based model, and just base everything on whatever the legislature wants. And the question you have to really ask yourself is, do you want a formula depending on what your kids need, or do you want an asshole like Matt Huffman doing it? And that's how I kind of see the thing, is, you know, you don't want legislators, you don't want zealots determining how your kids get educated. You want the teachers, you want the professionals, and you want anybody but Ohio lawmakers who are working in the most corrupt state house in the world, determining how your kids get educated. And all you need to really know about Matt Huffman's real goals here are, he said that the $800 million that were needed to fully fund the Fair School Funding Plan is unsustainable. It's untenable, can't possibly do it. Do you want to guess how much money they've dumped into vouchers since 2021? $800 million. So he's more than happy to spend it on vouchers, but at least on the vouchers, we don't get to audit how they're spending the money. So $8.6 billion going out to vouchers at the end of this budget, if you look at the entire voucher program. Not a single dollar has ever been audited, not one penny. Yet they're willing to invest in that, but they're not willing to invest in our kids. And finally, you know, the difference is, you know, before, and I know Dennis is going to talk about vouchers here in a minute, but before we had vouchers and charters, every kid in the state of Ohio that was in the public schools got 100% of the money that was set aside to fund education. Today, public school students make up about 85% of the school-age population, and they get 75% of the state money. So if you ever hear that talk about, you know, money following the kid, it ain't happening in Ohio. So I'll leave it over to Dennis now.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate being here with Scarlett and with Steve. I see Eve Bolton over here, who's a member of our steering committee for Vouchers for Ohio, and I see a lot of friends in the audience. So about 4 years ago, Bill Phillis, I know most of you know him, with the coalition that sued the state successfully over the school funding formula, asked me to join Vouchers for Ohio. It wasn't even named that yet. And one of the reasons that we named it Vouchers for Ohio is we wanted every time somebody said our name, we wanted to make a value statement about vouchers. So when you read about us in the paper or see us on TV being quoted anywhere, we're making a statement, because they want to call them scholarships, and they want to make it seem benign, and really vouchers do hurt Ohio. So I would ask all of you, for going forward, anytime that you're talking about this, make that value statement. And you can say that about vouchers hurt teachers, parents, communities, homeowners, taxpayers, because vouchers hurt. Now, we're not alone in our fight. If you look across the country, there's been an expansion of vouchers, and universal vouchers in some cases. And in state after state where this has happened, mainly pushed by billionaires like Betsy DeVos and the Koch industry family, what you're seeing is state organizations like Vouchers for Ohio pop up. And in some states, they go to the governor's office and they have a receptive ear to push back against voucher expansion. Some cases, the legislature is actually sympathetic. In Ohio, we knew that wasn't happening. We had no recourse but to go to the courts. So we sued. We sued over 5 counts. I want to go through those with you. But first, I want to say to you that from the beginning, we want to win in the court of law, but we also want to win in the court of public opinion. It's really important. So I'm asking all of you to be messengers. Talk about this. Let people know. And when I talk to you about the 5 counts, you'll see how this is really hurting us. The other thing, too, is I know there's a lot of teachers in this room. And keep in mind, when they're pulling $1 billion a year out of the public system and sending it to a private system that has zero accountability academically or financially, and they're also paying people who are not in the STRS system, they are ripping off your pension funds to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So part of my job is to engage and enrage, and I hope that you're getting a little enraged. The 5 counts. The first count, and these are all based on the Ohio Constitution. This is a lawsuit that is going through the state of Ohio and will eventually end up in the Ohio Supreme Court. And I know all of you know that this Ohio Supreme Court tilts right so far that, you know, it falls off the side of the flat earth. But keep in mind that there's cases being all across the country that are moving forward. And our court just can't act, you know, without looking at other things that are happening. Just in the past 2 weeks in Utah, a lower court ruled that the voucher program there was unconstitutional on 2 counts that are very similar to what we're fighting for. Count 1, the Constitution is very clear. The legislature shall create a single system of common schools for the common good. Vouchers create a separate and unequal system of uncommon schools. That's unconstitutional, right there. That's count 1. All we need to do is win on one of these 5 counts. Count 2, as Steve mentioned, they've thrown out the Fair School Funding Plan. They don't have a system anymore. And this is a system they developed and said to themselves, this is what we need to pay to make this system constitutional. They've thrown it out. And keep in mind that if you look at the state budget, you're not going to see a line item for vouchers because it's in the same line item that pays for public schools. So $1 more for private school vouchers is literally $1 less available for public schools. They are ripping us off big time. 90% of the families taking the vouchers were already enrolled. The universal voucher has no income limit. Les Wexner gets a partial voucher. That is even more than what he's eligible for each of his children is more than some districts get in a per pupil funding from the state. So that's count 2. The system's unconstitutional. Vouchers makes it worse by also increasing pressure for local schools to go back to their voters and ask for additional levies. 4 times the Ohio Supreme Court ruled that a funding formula over-reliant on personal property taxes is unconstitutional. Count 3, and this is really sad. It's really sad because these people sold vouchers as a way to help poor families have a choice. And guess who's getting ripped off the most here? Poor families. Poor families. Right now, these private schools with universal vouchers, they're taking the voucher, $8,400 for a high school student, $6,165 for a K through 8 student. They're taking that voucher and then they're raising their tuition. So a poor family who cannot dig into their own pocketbook to pay for that additional tuition it can't get in. And so the real power, when you hear school choice, the real choice and the power is in the hands of the private school operators. They choose who gets in and who is left behind. And they base their litmus test is race, religion, family income, athletic and academic capability, disability. They don't want to teach. They don't want to take disabled kids. They cost too much. So they don't let them in. You know whose doors are wide open to any child who comes into that school as public school? That's right. So what's happening is vouchers are increasing segregation in our schools. That's count 3. You should be, are you getting enraged? Because I'm trying to engage you. Count 4, I don't have the language right in front of me, but the Ohio Constitution, I mean, Scalia reading this clause in our Ohio Constitution would agree with us. It says basically, the religious sect cannot have any control of any part of public funds. And we know that this was something that this wasn't like a happenstance. In the 19th century, when we had constitutional conventions, the framers of our Constitution came together, and one of them actually offered an amendment to the Ohio Constitution that said, hey, maybe we should give money to private schools and religious schools. And the framers wholeheartedly rejected that idea. So there's precedent for this. It's not vague, it's not fuzzy. Religious schools don't get tax dollars, according to our Ohio Constitution. Now, when I was a state house reporter for 23 years, and I covered lawmakers, sometimes when they were passing a law, and it was iffy about being constitutional, they would joke and say, what's a little constitution between friends? And that's the sad part. Matt Huffman gets to dictate what's constitutional unless we challenge him. And we are challenging him. The 5th count is basically that we are all citizens of Ohio, and the Constitution is our Constitution. It's not the legislature's Constitution. It belongs and represents the citizens, each one of us individually. Therefore, you cannot use the laws of Ohio to create a special or privileged class. They are creating a privileged class. And we're going into court and we're going to beat them. We're going to beat them in Franklin County. We're going to beat them in the District Court of Appeals when they appeal it. And we're going to beat them at the Ohio Supreme Court.
Well, I'm back. I would like to, while we have our teacher speakers and parent speakers coming up, I would like to introduce our superintendent. Superintendent Murphy is here now. And tell us all who was the Hawkins winner. Very, very good. Thank you. And we have, next to Superintendent Murphy, we have Dr. Kareem Moffitt. She's the president of the school board. And also coming from the Hawkins Award, we have the Deputy Superintendent, Alicia Smith, sitting over here to your right or your left. We have Assistant Superintendent for High Schools, Amy Randolph. We have the Assistant Superintendent of Elementaries, Deb Klein. And we have President Emily Bell from AFSCME. And where is Emily? She's all the way up there in the top. So the first person that I would like to have come up to speak is Milbeth Allen, and she is an intervention specialist at John P. Parker. This is where we're picking up your card. So if you have a card, just hold it up and we'll come and get it. And then we'll put the questions together.
Good evening. My name is Milbeth Allen, and I am on Executive Council for OFT and CFT. I am currently a special education teacher at John P. Parker, teaching children with multiple disabilities and autism. I have been teaching in CPS for 26 years in special education. Cutting funding in special education could result in a disaster that would take years to bounce back from. We already do not have enough funding as it is for special education. If federal funding for special education were to be cut, several potential impacts could occur. Number one, a reduction in related services, such as mental health services for students with behavioral needs. For students who are medically fragile or those in special education may find reductions or layoffs of occupational therapists, speech and language pathologists, nurses, and classroom assistants, and much more. All of these services support the teacher to give children with special needs a well-rounded quality education. All of the students in special education in specialized units and resource rooms rely on these services on a daily basis. If funding is cut, these services may become obsolete. I have an assistant to help with academics, toileting, medical needs, oral hygiene, behavior, rules, routines, and expectations. Each student in a specialized classroom requires, one, a personalized individual schedule, individual academic tasks and lesson plans, a calming corner with fidgets or brain break activities. These are just some of the things a teacher provides in this type of classroom. Each child has individual needs that must be met according to their IEP. That's their individualized educational plan. That is a law-abiding document. Schools are required to comply with the Individuals with Disabilities Act, IDEA, meaning they must provide a free and appropriate education. A lack of funding will make compliance difficult for teachers, leading to potential legal challenges. If funding is cut, there will be layoffs of teachers in specialized units and assistants. Special education classes might become overcrowded, making it challenging to provide individualized attention to students who need it. Overstimulation in a large classroom or any changes to a student's routine with disabilities could potentially send them into a spiraling meltdown. Larger class sizes can lead to long-term educational gaps, affecting job readiness and independence for students with disabilities. Are general education teachers equipped with the training and resources to teach students with autism and multiple disabilities? Will general education teachers have the time and support to teach students who are in specialized classrooms? Lastly, if funding is cut from special education, it will be a tragedy for our parents. Parents already worry about their children when they leave for school every day for various reasons. In our specialized units, you will find assistants who support the teacher. You find nurses, occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech and language pathologists, ELL. You find everyone is here to help specialized classrooms. You will find students who are verbal, nonverbal, students in wheelchairs, students who are not in wheelchairs, students who can feed themselves, some who cannot feed themselves. Many need serious medical needs and attention. The list goes on. Funding cuts will increase this worry because now they will have to navigate an already complex system with fewer resources and increased financial burdens. I found a quote by a parent out in California in an article I was reading, and this father summed it up for me and what I know parents will be feeling if funding is cut. Here's the quote. "I call it a death blow because it will be. It literally will be. It will kill many of our family members' ability to have a productive and engaged life. Let's not allow this to happen without speaking out and showing up. As we say in CPS, we are here for kids. And as a member of CFT and OFT, I must reiterate our phrase, protect public education and protect our kids." Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Clayton Adams, and I'm a teacher at Aiken High School. We've heard a lot today about a clear and serious effort to strip away the funding from traditional public school districts in this state and our country. But we need to ask ourselves, what does this loss of funding actually look like within the classroom setting? Statewide and federal funding cuts translate into less resources for teachers as well as fewer resources for students and their families. This means that school districts will have to purchase cheaper curriculum materials, implement larger class sizes, purchase fewer learning materials for classrooms, as well as cut staff like secretaries, administrators, teachers, and paraprofessionals. Everyone working in or attending traditional public schools will feel the pain of budget cuts because these aren't just numbers on a piece of paper. We also can take a step back and think more about how budget cuts and vouchers impact the student demographics within our public schools. With the expansion of vouchers, school segregation will continue to rise. We will see more and more special needs students segregated within public school districts since they are predominantly not welcome in private schools. There is also data that suggests that schools accepting vouchers disproportionately attract higher performing or more affluent students from public schools, leaving behind a more disadvantaged population. Specifically in Ohio, our schools are becoming more and more segregated due to vouchers and the proliferation of unaccountable charter schools. Lastly, the systematic destruction of our country's Department of Education will have serious negative consequences for most of our vulnerable students. The Department of Education distributes over $70 billion annually in grants like Title I for low-income schools, Pell Grants for low-income college students, and special education funding. The intentional destruction of the Department of Education complicates how this money is distributed, if at all. States like Ohio may struggle to fund education without this support, especially states with smaller tax bases. I beg the public to speak out against these budget cuts and call your elected representatives across all levels of government. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, Angela Houston. I'm here as a parent. I have my parent hat on today. I don't know why I'm here because I don't understand why I have to tell public officials who we elect publicly to use public dollars to fund public education. But here we are because common sense isn't common. Another thing, we're doing our part. I know I have two boys that are in CPS, one's at Withrow, one's at Hughes, and they're on their best behavior every single day. I never get phone calls, and I know you never have to do anything to help my kids do extra work or, when they want to turn it in, how can I get my grade up? That doesn't happen, I know. But still, I want to thank you for just coming in from 8 to 3 every day and doing your lesson plans during your lesson plan time, because I know that's all you do, right? Yes. I just want to say that I'm a graduate. I went to Burton Elementary. Anybody been here that long? Okay. All right. Graduated from Woodward High School. Again, my kids are at Hughes. Yeah. Bulldogs. My kids are at Hughes and Withrow. And fair school funding is important. My rent or my mortgage, the tax shouldn't be more than the actual payment, because we have to keep coming back and asking for dollars and asking for dollars. Public funds should fund public schools. When school funding gets cut, it doesn't just impact budgets on paper, it's real people, it's us. It's devastating. We feel the loss. It's not just a rise in eggs. I can't even get eggs. But who did eggs for Easter? We did rocks. But I hide them rocks. They're my eggs. And as a teacher myself, I already know how we go into our pockets year after year after year, and that's still not enough, is it? I want them, they need to buy their own paper. They need to buy their own pencils. They need to feel what we feel, or better yet, they need to become our superheroes and fund public education. Stop calling us superheroes. Put on the cape and jump in and fight with us, right? Sports will be cut. My kids don't play sports just for fun. They play it for It helps them with their time management. It helps them keep interested in school, because we can be a little boring, let's be clear. It means larger class sizes if we don't get the funding. It means outdated textbooks. It means broken technology. I don't see any state legislator talking about, oh, my laptop don't broke. My laptop is 5 years old. I can't find my charger. No, you get the funding for that. We should get the funding for that. There should be no reason why we have to be asking and keep going to the parents for the basic needs of our kids when legislators get it anyway. Why do we have to keep asking? Art, music, library programs. It's not just math, science, and reading. Field trips. That's why we all wanted to come to school. No, they're not absent on field trip day, are they? No, they're not. There's a growing teacher shortage. I know they don't want to come in here and teach these children, right? It's hard work, but we love it, and we do our jobs, and we just need them to do theirs. Fair funding shouldn't be a partisan issue. It's a matter of basic dignity, of equity, and of a long-term vision for Ohio. We cannot continue to punish districts with higher needs simply because they lack a strong property tax base. That's not fairness. That's systemic disinvestment, and it's hurting our children. We need you to pass the Fair School Funding Plan, not just for me or my sons, not just for Cincinnati, but for every child in every district across this state who deserves the chance to succeed. Thank you for your time. Do what's right. Call your legislatures. That 5-second phone call. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a lot of great questions here, and I'll just get through as many as we can. So the first question is, vouchers and charters will also hurt rural districts that only have public school districts. They don't have private schools. So why don't more citizens from rural Ohio legislative districts get angry about the current school funding, and how can they express their voice?
Well, they are becoming more active. Again, the original school funding lawsuit came out of Appalachia, so they have, of course, they've been burned by it too. But I do think that there have been more rural and suburban districts that have come to join the coalition. We just got Upper Arlington, which is a very wealthy district right outside Columbus. We've also got some rural Appalachian districts that are signing on. And I'm telling you what, the best advertisement for our lawsuit is what Matt Huffman keeps doing to them. Mm-hmm. Because, I deliberately used the A word to describe him because playing nice with these guys has not worked. We've been all worried about what they do to us. What are they going to do to us? Well, look at what they're doing to us. We just need to call it out for what it is. And so I do think that there have been a lot of moves toward advocating for this in other communities. The largest communities, when they did the voucher expansion a couple years ago, districts that got that got hammered the most right out the door were the rural and suburban districts, and it really woke them up because they thought, oh, that never happened to us. It's Cincinnati's problem. It's Cleveland's problem. No. It's your problem. It's all of our problem. It's a $1.2 billion program now. There isn't a school district in the state that isn't at least a little bit touched by this. There may be, 15 districts that don't lose any money to vouchers. So again, it is a matter of statewide concern. And when you add in the charter schools, which is not subject to the lawsuit, when you add in charters and vouchers, you're looking at almost $3 billion being just funneled out to these privately run schools that are just not accountable to the taxpayers the way you guys are.
So I would just add that my first state operating budget was in 1999, as I mentioned earlier, on behalf of Cleveland schools. Since then, I've worked on every operating budget on behalf of K-12 in one way or another with the Ohio 8 since 2011. And the last two budgets are the most coordinated that suburban, urban, and rural districts have been. The rural districts are represented by a coalition, it's the Coalition of Rural and Appalachian Schools, Chorus. And the urbans for years were saying, we know what rolls downhill, bad policy and other things, it's coming at you, it's coming at you, it's coming at you. And I would say the last two budgets, as you mentioned, all of a sudden people are coming around to the districts that have been going through it. So I'm not a rose-colored glasses type of person, especially with this work, but I have to say that we are tightly coordinated. In the past, people have tried to cut their own deals at the State House. That is pretty much not the case anymore. I still have my eyes out for it, but they're coming around because they just keep on, their creativity knows no bounds.
It's not
And
even
they're
creative
showing that.
anymore.
Yeah, well,
It's
yeah.
just obvious.
Yeah, right.
You know, 800 million to vouchers, you're not gonna pay 800 million for public school kids. I mean, it's not even, you know, I talk a lot with national reporters on some issues, and it's really hard to get through their heads that this is pretty obvious what they're doing. I mean, this isn't, you don't have to do massive, statistical analyses to figure out they're taking $800 million, giving it to private schools, and in exchange for that, they're not funding $800 million for public schools. It comes out of the same damn line item. I mean, it's just not, it's not rocket science.
Okay, thank you. How can we make our message so crystal clear and so simple that we can get a significant increase in message sharing?
So I'm a real big believer in message discipline. And you can go to our website, vouchersheardohio.com, and there's a lot of information there about our messaging. But I always think of messaging, you know, there's branding and messaging. You've heard those two words. Branding to me are like the two pieces of bread of a sandwich. So, you know, when I talk about Vouchers Hurt Ohio, I start with that piece of bread, which is the branding, Vouchers Hurt Ohio. Then I say how vouchers hurt Ohio. You know, vouchers hurt Ohio because it worsens segregation in Ohio. Vouchers hurt Ohio. Just put that second piece of bread on top of that sandwich. I think it's really important that you go out as messengers. We have a Facebook page. On our website, you can see what districts have joined and you can see if your district is part of it. Cincinnati is one of the original districts. Steve mentioned how this is disproportionately hurting suburban districts. Lakota, I think some of you are familiar with them, they just joined recently. Now that's a district that never would have been part of the coalition's lawsuit for school funding. So, I mean, people are getting it, and we are winning in the court of public opinion. We hold forums like this, or we're invited to them, and the other side doesn't even show up because we just beat their myths. You know, we just blow up their myths. But I do think there's a lot of messaging on our website. You can also sign up for a weekly email we send out on Tuesday morning that updates everything that's going on, has a lot of messaging in it. And I promise you, we never will ask you for a penny, and we'll never tell you that it's 2 minutes to midnight, and if you don't give money right now, the world's gonna explode.
Well, maybe. If it gets to the Supreme Court, all bets are off.
Well, that segues into our next question. There's currently a case in front of the United States Supreme Court involving the constitutionality of religious charter schools. If the Supreme Court rules in favor of the religious charter schools, how would that change the fight in Ohio?
Well, I think what we can do is look at the experience of what happened when the Supreme Court said the Cleveland voucher program was constitutional in 2002. What happened? 3 years later, they did Ed Choice, and vouchers exploded, and now we have a $1.2 billion problem. I think the same would happen there. I think it's pretty clear that Matt Huffman is trying to single-handedly create a publicly run private school system. He's trying to build them. He's trying to create them out of whole cloth. because he knows that in Texas, at least, the rural communities are really fighting back against their voucher program. So he knows he's got to get some in the rural areas. And then, you know, I think we're the only state in the country that actually funds private school buildings.
Yep.
So so he would love that. But unfortunately, you know, the other thing that they never talk about, they talk about how the US Supreme Court found vouchers constitutional. Well, the reason they did back in 2002 is because it was only about a $3 million program at the time it was filed. It was only in Cleveland. The amount of money per pupil that was being spent was much less than what you've got in public schools today, or even then. So it was a small, focused program. Today, it's a $1.2 billion program. Something on the order of 85% of all school districts get less per pupil revenue from the state than the high school ed choice voucher. About 60% of school districts get less than the K-8 voucher. This is not that program. And that's one of the arguments that that's going to be made in the state court, is that, you know, the program that the U.S. Supreme Court looked at in 2002 is nothing like the one we've got today. And my guess is that, just based on our past history, that this legislature and this governor would just run with that and start creating all kinds of chartered religious schools all over the state.
I think we have time for one more quick one. We keep talking about if funding is cut. What is the deadline for contacting legislators and taking action? Give us a sense
Sure.
of the timeline for
Sure.
this.
So right now, the Senate is holding hearings. There's public testimony. I'm happy to send that along to Julie. You can either submit it written through their website or be there in person. So that within the next couple of weeks, the Senate is having their hearings. They plan to wrap up and have a bill passed the week of June 9th. And then it will go to conference committee, which is a small group of legislators from each chamber, each party, to sort of reconcile the differences between the House and the Senate. The time is now. And whoever it is, it doesn't have to be your senators, Ingram, who I know you know, and Blessing, are public school advocates. They are working their pants off on your behalf in Columbus. Two different parties, they're working together on your behalf, for sure. But even if you feel like, oh, well, my legislator, he won't listen or she doesn't believe, the important part is to communicate with them, because the tough thing for me as I go in as an advocate is when they say, I haven't heard from anybody. I would rather them say, yeah, I heard from them and I don't agree, but at least they heard from you. So call, write, talk to staff. As a former staffer, they run a ton of the behind the scenes stuff and the conversations they have. So whoever you can talk to, make those calls, send those emails within the next couple of weeks at the latest.
Thanks, folks, for the good questions and the excellent answers. All right, folks, we're going to try and stay on time here. My name is Michelle Dunn, and I proudly work at the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers office, and I am your closer, because we want to leave a few minutes to mingle and network and connect right after this. So I'm going to say something, and then you repeat it. Well, we'll do it like this. Whose schools? Our schools. Whose kids? Our kids. Whose money? Our money. Whose schools? Our schools. Whose kids? Our kids. Whose money? Our money. Yes, that's right. We have to get pumped up and we have to have our voices heard. So thanks to the panel, and I want to direct your attention to our guide here. And in this guide, it will show you who to contact. So this town hall was both about educating us all on what's going on up at the State House. We are in a short time frame. That's why we picked this week to have this town hall, because it is the prime time to reach out to the politicians in the Ohio State House. In your guide, there's a list of who is on the Senate Education Committee.
and also who's on the Senate Finance Committee. These are the key decision makers. We want you to call and email all of these people and tell them what you heard tonight and what you would like to see different. We have a yellow piece of paper. These are some sample talking points. Some of what you heard tonight is on this sheet for you to be able to share with your legislators, right? The green sheet, all of us are part of some groups. It might be a church group, a sorority, a civic group. This is a sample resolution. It is a statement of values. And we are saying that you should take this to your groups and say, we want to stand for public education and for fair funding. And you can draft a resolution just like this on behalf of your group. It can be any group at all, right? It could be a faith group, it could be a prayer group, it could be a book club group, right? And then once you draft and adopt it as a group, we want you to send it up to Senate Finance Committee Chairman Jerry Serino. Is that how you say his name? Jerry Serino. That's his, you got his contact right there. And you can send the teachers union a copy because we're gonna help and use it in our testimony, right, Melissa, up at the State House. So send us all your groups. This matters. It matters. Your voices all matter, and we need to hear them loudly from Southwest Ohio. Right, folks? Yes. We cannot let this stand. You know, I dread the day that we have to wake up and grapple with the kind of cuts that they're recommending and what that means. You know, for our students. You know, I moved personally because I'm a mother of a son with special needs who went through this district. And he got pretty much everything he needed. And he was surrounded with what he needed, and it's because of public education, and he was rejected. His voucher was rejected. They told me in all those Catholic archdiocese schools and all those charters, we're not accepting your son, he's too expensive, and we don't have to. So I was back to the traditional failing public school, and thank God for Cincinnati Public Schools, right? Yes, this is personal to all of us. This is personal. Make it personal. This is personal. This is our jobs, this is our families, this is our children. So thank you for coming out tonight. We're gonna close officially, but please, I thank you so much for coming down the road through the traffic, these expert panelists, to our unions, to the district, and please mingle and take action. Thank you.